Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Right day. I'm quite inspired by Ms. Ramaswamy and, her talk and context on being honest. So I'll start by being honest. This is my first as a moderator. I've always been on the other side. And frankly, I'm quite nervous, so I need some encouragement and some, I hope you'll be tolerant, but I'll try my best to moderate it to the best of my capacity. Thank you, panelists, for joining. We're waiting for Anjali, but we can start. Over the next 45 minutes, what we're going to discuss is about learning strategies for frontline workers and really the need to reimagine the way we look at learning and skilling for our frontline workers. We all know that majority of our workforce across the globe don't sit on the computer, they don't sit on the desk. They are either on the road, on the shop floor, and they don't have computers on which they sit all day. 2.7 billion people across the globe are frontline workers. That makes them 80% of the global workforce. And yet, L&D professionals struggle to really engage with them. That's the reason probably is because they are on the shop floor and they are on the road all the time. And that's the reason why we're having this discussion. Is there really a need to reimagine, to relook the way we look at learning and skilling for our frontline workers? And that's what we're going to discuss in the next 45 minutes. And I'm going to start and before that, I'm going to make this a little interactive, so I'm going to throw a few questions to the audience as well. So it's going to be participative, but I'll start with Jeeva and then Nandini. Walk us through some of the learning strategies that you deploy in your companies for frontline workers.
Good morning, everyone. Hope I'm audible. This is what we heard last 2 years, right? Hope I'm audible. Yeah. So thank you. So learning strategies for our frontline. So our frontline workforce is close to 400,000. So every year the strategy, the challenge for us is to onboard some 100,000 people. That's a kind of last year we onboarded some 100,000 people. Of course, the challenge is to make sure that they are productive from the day one. So we looked at maybe three-prong approach. So one, whoever is joining us, we need to make sure that they are successful from the day one, right? So every business, it's a very diverse business. I represent Reliance Retail. It's a very diverse business. So we are into grocery, we are into fashion lifestyle, we are into electronics, and we are also, our new baby is pharma. So every business is completely different. And in fact, when Yashwini was talking about earlier, so he said the power plant, and in our case, our grocery business. So they were still running to the stores. They were making sure that we get our groceries on time, our essentials on time. So we need to make sure that they are all ready and productive. So every business, we have a different approach, but more or less it's all same. So one is, of course, the duration is different. So from 5 days to 28 days, every business we have a different approach. And earlier we had the comfort of offline classroom sessions. So now in the last 2 years, we are doing completely online. And then it helped us, built our confidence to look at new ways of doing it. So it's a combination of classroom training, VALT, we call it as virtually instructor-led training program, e-learnings, and self-learning. I mean, they're also learning on their own, and role plays. I mean, we do a lot of role plays because every business is different, and the way we are interacting with the customers is also different. So we created a lot of scenarios, and based on the scenarios and customer persona, we do scenario-based role plays, and it was possible for us to make it even online as well. And today we are doing it offline and online. One of the initiatives, in fact, my grocery business colleagues are here. We trained our business guys to be a trainer. I mean, I think that's a way to democratize learning. So we started training our own people, so to our operations guys to be trained so that they could also train our people. So it's a combination of online, offline, role plays, simulation, and gamification. So we used all the stuff. The strategy is, one is, of course, we call it in our style, ready to jumpstart. So whoever is joining our organization, the first stage is ready to jumpstart. So that's a role-based certification. That role-based certification starts from, I told you, 5 days to 28 days, depends on the business. And the second stage is continuous learning. And as you know, business is changing every time. And we have continuous learning. We call it as strive to perform. So the continuous learning focus on performance support, making sure that they are supported with performance indicators so that they know what they are doing, right? And this is a continuous journey because our product lines are changing, our processes are changing. This is an ongoing process, and then we make sure that they are successful. And the third one stage is aspire to grow. Basically, it's our growth opportunity. Yes, I mean, as I'm speaking, so every month we are in need of some thousands of managers. So it's not possible for me to get it from outside. So we need to have a very strong build strategy. Every business has a very strong build strategy so that we build people for the next level roles. So that's a 3 stages approach. Maybe we can talk later. I don't know whether I've taken too much of.
Thanks. I think retail has really come a long way as far as learning and skilling is concerned. But Nandini, what are your views on this, and what strategies do you use, for skilling?
Before getting into the strategies, I think it's important for us to know the challenges of frontline employees. And I look at 3-4 things there. The first is our frontline employees are working 10 to 12 hours a day. And they are completely occupied, so they really don't have the time. Second is, most of them are 10, 12 pass. As far as Metro Brands is concerned, we don't have a qualification based on which we hire. Reason being, we are in the footwear industry, and not too many people are willing to join the footwear industry. So we have employees who are not educated, employees who are probably, 50, 55 years old as well. So it's a wide range of, age group that we have as well, and education is another concern. The third thing is that, it's a very dynamic, place to be in, the store, right? Every moment something different is happening there. So it becomes very difficult to have a structured training program for the front line. And what best works here in terms of a strategy would be to focus on a lot of on-job training, which means, like Jiva said, to train the store managers to be able to create, a learning culture in the store. So I think that is very, very important, and that's what we do. We don't hire store managers and above from outside. So it becomes a mandate for the store manager and the area manager to ensure that they groom the team below so that we have people ready in the pipeline. Number 3, like I said, because of the education background that they come from, it becomes very difficult to have a lot of theory in writing. So we do a lot of video, audio trainings. We do a lot of activity-based trainings, which are more to do with, I think even Jiva spoke about that as well. A lot of role plays, a lot of situation-based. What do you do when a situation comes up? So I think our focus is more on, how do we engage the front line, keeping in mind that they may not get enough time. So we do a lot of bite-sized learning through audio-video programs. We focus on the store managers taking up the onus of driving the trainings because, nowhere, I'm sure all of you would agree that we don't have such a large training team in our organizations that can cater to the number of frontline employees we have, right? So that's broadly what we follow in terms of a strategy. We have a potential manager program, which is for developing our store managers, which is a completely online program for people who get selected or rather get nominated to become store managers. So they go through this potential manager program over a period of 2 months, and then they get evaluated, and once they're evaluated, we have them as a pool for our future stores. So that's what we do in terms of training strategies at Metro Brands.
I think I can relate to it. Similar thing we used when I was in Star Bazaar. We used a similar program for potential store managers. I can quite relate to it. Before I can get to Nirav, I think I'll just pose a question to the audience, and please help me with the mic. What according to you are some of the retail skills we need to look at in 2023? What difference do we need to see in our retail frontline employees? Anybody can answer that question for us, for me to take this discussion forward. Anybody? Or I'll pick. I'm very good at that. So, anyone? Can we have the mic?
Hi, this is Manisha. And
Hi.
I think that digital skills are something which would be very, very important and necessary for our front-end teams, because businesses are changing the way they do business today. So I think, yeah, that is one of the things.
Thanks. Anyone else?
Hi, I am Sumit. I'll take the point on ahead from what Manisha said. We have to change our mindset. We talk about people being, 10th, 12th passed and being just about educated. The fact of the matter is everybody is using a smartphone today, which is much, much more advanced than any sort of computer that we have used. If they are capable of using the smartphone, they are very well capable of using the same technology for, retail-related purposes, learning and retail-related purposes. We just need to create the content in that manner that it is interesting. At the same time, it is able to serve a purpose. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Gaurav
Hi.
from Reliance Retail. I feel, I agree with both of my friends here. Very important points. Along with this, I feel the communication skills play a very important role. We need to start building a culture wherein we start training them on basic communication skills, which not just talks about the way we interact, but also the language. Because the customers are now, the education level in the community is increasing, and a lot of customers are interacting in English. The product information that we get, we can't train all the people in all the products. Yeah, with the diversified product line, we should be able to enable them to read the brochures or the tags, and so that they can at least read and explain it back to the customer.
Right.
Remembering all the things, expecting a 10th or 12th class passed kid to remember product information for like 10,000, 20,000 SKUs in a store, it's almost impossible. So
Right.
that's where I think we can build capability.
Right. We'll quickly run to we'll just take two more. The gentleman in black. Black, right? Or gray? Black. Oh. Okay, sorry.
Okay, Manisha, Sunil, Gaurav made very good points, but according to me, customer centricity. Gaurav spoke about people being 10th pass, 12th pass, and having to interact with customers who are now looking at the standards abroad. They are well traveled, they understand store experience very differently. And though customer centricity has been talked about quite a bit, somewhere getting that kind of a workforce to think customer all the time, and not just when people are watching over them or supervising them, innately understanding customer centricity and understanding the needs of the customers, which could be very unstated. So, for example, the customer may want to look at a stylist in that person with whom he or she is interacting. And we need to be geared up to those levels of customer service. That's my opinion.
Thank you. I'll come back with the next question. Thank you. Neera, my question to you is, what do you think, what kind of approach works best when you want to personalize learning for frontline workers?
My response would be very simple. First up, very good morning to everybody. weather has gotten better, so people coming in from other cities should feel better. It wasn't as pleasant some time back. So, but yeah, if you look at the whole learning philosophy, is very simple, and if you really break it down, there are three elements to it, right? The learning principles are and will continue to be the same. It's not going to change, right? These are principles. They are like laws, right? The science has laws. In the same way, learning has principles, and these principles aren't going to change. And it's important that we really respect those principles and keep those at the core or of all our learning designs. So that's one. What then changes, and this I would invite all of you to visualize a concentric circle to see that the learning principle is at the core of it, the context around it, which is evolving, and all of us as professionals need to be mindful of that, to respect that the context is changing. The context from which our workforce is coming is changing. We talk about Gen Z and all of the gens that you can possibly think of. Basically, that transition and the quick transition that we're experiencing is because the context in which they are coming up has changed. So, sorry. So the context is changing. So we need to be really mindful of the context in which we are really engaging with this talent. And the outermost layer over there is the tool, right? The tools with which we allow our learnings to get to these individuals, through which they are interfacing, they are experiencing our initiatives, the tools with which they will actually engage with our consumers. And if we do an inside-out work, I think that the longevity of initiatives and the impact of those initiatives could be a lot more. If we reverse the order, I'm not sure of the impact, right? So I would say that if I have to respond to it in a very pointed manner, tools can follow, but if you really need to really get the principles right and know what those principles are and address those fundamentally, which is very deep engagement. And I always believe that if you don't develop your people, how else will you actually impact the consumer? Because that individual standing in the store is actually bringing the monies in the cash, right? There's no other way. So that's the reality. That's where the rubber meets the road. And if we really don't bring in everything over there, I think then probably we're not doing the things right through the value chain in the organization.
Right, Neerav. I'll just follow up on that. The skills that really people talked about, digital, communication. When you say you want to personalize these, to each individual, what do you think are some of the challenges you will face when you actually trying to personalize this to each individual, and given the number of people in the frontline workforce?
Vibhavri, I've always believed that learning has to be personalized. If not, then we are having it easy in our lives, right, as professionals. The cookie cutter approach is very easy to execute. You can have templates and it's easy to roll out. You will have big spreadsheets. You can track it over a period of time, make snazzy presentations, impress the folks, because probably that's the kind of validation they are looking for. But really, it doesn't move the needle, honestly speaking. If you really want to make an high impact learning initiative, we have to address what exactly is this person wanting to do the job for. And I think that really, and yesterday I was just speaking with a few managers in my company, and I was telling them that why can't we speak and understand what they want, right? Before we thrust upon something, why can't we just stand back and say, hey, what is it that you would want and how would you want me to do this for you? Simple two questions, right? I don't want to go to a restaurant and thrust the food on me, right? I would look at the menu, order the food, and get the food I want. If that is doable, why can't we do learning for our people in the way they would want it, right? It sounds very idealistic, but I think there's no other way to do it than that.
Right. I'll go to Gauri now. Talk us through some of the challenges you faced over the last couple of years. We've heard that life has really changed post-COVID, and we faced a lot of challenges. Retail was always on the go despite whatever happened. In Nykaa, what kind of challenges did you really face in terms of your L&D strategy? And how did you kind of overcome it? Talk us through some of these challenges.
Hello. So first of all, good morning, everyone. Like Vibhavri, being a first-time moderator, I am a first-time panelist. So bear with me. And also, I have some senior esteemed guests here who have looked up to Jiva sir, Meera, who's been my mentor. So I feel humbled and honored at the same time. But I kind of penned down some notes on my way, so pardon me if I keep looking at my phone, making best use of technology, as we say, and that's what we're speaking about here. Quickly in terms of, how Nykaa, we looked at our L&D strategy. We clearly wanted to be customer-centric. We wanted to build learning journeys which are engaging, which help achieve business goals, by using various training methodologies, channels that are scalable. What happened over the last 2 years is, let's now look at the challenges. Clearly, almost overnight we saw a crazy change in the way we had to look at workplace practices. So in terms of challenges, I would say first is that we had to accept the changing L&D reality. We had to move from the traditional classroom and then of course also compromise on the whole on-job training processes, etc. Two, I would say also with that came, it's easy to say remote learning, distant learning, but with the kind of millennials that we work today, it was difficult, it was a task to keep it engaging, to hold their attention span. So a couple of these challenges, I would say. Thirdly, and very importantly, while we talk about digital, we're missing the fact that then human interactions reduce, right? So it was important for then L&D to kind of drive training initiatives in such a way that those human interactions are also not impacted and employee well-being is kept in mind. So again, 2-3 things which I thought, what Nykaa did, and I feel like overall this kind of will now be the new norm, would be, one is blended learning, which would mean that you're not kind of moving with one form, but you're using virtual sessions, videos, at the same time on job, especially the space that I come from, which is the beauty space. It's so much about sensory and experiential and touch and feel, right? So that's not going to go away. Having said that, we look at alternate methods like virtual workshops, beauty workshops. We look at latest trend videos, etc., that we brought in. So it's kind of a blended form. We of course then use the e-app tool, and we use this tool in a like Neerav said, in like a personalized way of learning. So we brought in daily tasks, we brought in pre and post action plans, we brought in surveys, workshops, etc., which kind of, your touch points, even if they are remote, the touch points increase, and the employees feel inclusive. And then of course I spoke about the e-app tool. Sorry, let me just look at my phone, a few more points. Yeah, the other important couple of points that I wanted to talk about was omni-retailing, okay, is going to be the new need. And that we had to bring up our employees up to speed on this, which means that we also drove trainings on how to give a seamless experience on online transactions which might happen in the store. At the same time, we kind of trained our teams on other omni initiatives which are common online, offline, which is our Nykaa e-com as well as in stores, which is to communicate correctly our reward point programs, our loyalty programs for our valued customers, etc., so that then the customers have a very seamless experience. The other piece, and which again I personally think is going to be here to stay, and that's how it should be, is also cross-skilling. Some of these initiatives also is what we took and piloted, especially it helped us during the pandemic, which means that we equipped some of our employees, basis of course their capabilities, to see how we can deploy them for other cross functions, which means, for example, outbound calling of to our customers, which is through our customer service functions, the departments. So also, video consultation, beauty advice via, remote offline. This helped two ways from an organizational standpoint. It, of course, improved efficiencies, productivity, but more importantly, from an employee standpoint, it helps the employee to expand its own capabilities and grow, right? So it's kind of a win-win. So largely, omni-retailing, I think, is here to stay, and that's something that we want to bring in our trainings. Cross-functional skilling is here to stay and is something that we want to bring in. And I think blended learning is something which is the future. So yeah, largely, these are 3 or 4 things.
I could see Neerav kind of nodding as Gauri spoke, but I'm going to ask Jiva, I mean, yeah.
Sorry, I was vigorously nodding because clearly identify whatever was saying. So, I mean.
Yeah, no, because same industry sort of. So, but I probably.
Just to clarify, I was heading HR at Nykaa earlier. So.
Yeah. So from a Reliance point of view, Jiva, do you want to add to something that you did differently, post the situation of COVID, and what really changed for you in terms of your L&D strategy?
Yeah. So before getting into this, maybe I'll touch upon some macros and then micros. So the macros, maybe I'm taking cue from what Yashaswini was talking about. The consultants changed some terminology, right? So VUCA world, everyone knows VUCA world. That's what we have been talking for the last few years. Now it's Barney world, right? So it's brittle, anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible. So that's the world we are in. And being in retail, I always believe a simple formula. One is EX is equal to CX is equal to SX. So EX is employee experience. That's what we are doing. And if you are able to enhance the employee experience, they'll be able to contribute to the customer experience. So the customers will stay with you. They will also come again and again. And then, of course, the shareholders' experience also will be better. They will continue to focus on this. So I just got some little academic additional input in this. So yeah, we are all working hard to enhance our employee experience in terms of their capability building, in terms of their recognition, in terms of building a career mobility, a career growth for them. But what makes some of the people to act differently, how they are really enhancing their experience. Of course, recently I come across a very interesting organizational behavior concept called personal initiative. So it's basically somebody is proactive, somebody is, no matter what, they will continue to give the best to the customer. And this is personal initiatives. How we can really enhance personal initiative, that's one challenge. The second, little micro level, coming to Reliance. In the last 2 years or 2.5 years, we also diversified our business. It's no more a physical retail organization. We also got into online channels. So it's no more, the challenges are completely different. So we need to look at both the worlds. And in terms of our target persona, target employees is 8th standard to PhDs. So that's the kind of people we have. And Neerav was talking about personalization. So that's very good to know. We also want to do personalized. But is it really possible to personalize learning journey for 400,000 people? And with a diverse business, we have more than 30 business verticals. So how it is possible to really do that? So one is going with a conventional way, going to the employees and asking them, what do you want to be learned, right? No, it's basically traditional, conventional training need analysis. The other one is what is really important for the organization. Okay, we are in the business. And every business is different and every customer persona we know, right? So what does it really work for the customer? Okay, that is one point. So we need to really understand the persona of the customer and then persona of our employees. What are the complementing behaviors? So that's where I think we spend most of our time. So what are the complementing behavior? How we are going to really build a training program which is personalized, at the same time it is also serving the business. So unless our employees are successful and when they are able to, unless they are able to connect with the business deliverables, I don't think they'll be able to make an impact on the customers, right? So that's what I think we were focusing. And one of the other interesting thing is democratizing learning. So our chairman also talks about democratizing learning. In fact, that's a bigger thing. So how are you going to really democratize learning? So we give everything. So you take what you want, but that's going to help you to deliver results. It will also improve your performance. At the same time, it will also connect with our customers. So that's a kind of buffet we created, and though it is also focused. And in fact, one of the very interesting things which I need to, maybe it's not for frontline employees, one of the MOOC program, Coursera, so it's not even restricted to our employees. So our management has made it available for our family members as well. So our family members of Reliance Retail can access, can learn whatever they want to learn. It is unlimited. So that's the kind of, we have moved to that level. So we are completely focusing on democratizing learning. And I think my colleagues are here, so they are doing a lot of work in terms of connecting the customer, empowering our employees with capabilities so that they could make a difference in customers' life.
Interesting, Jeeva. Nandini, I want to ask you, in your experience, you've been in retail for quite a bit of your career. How do you see integrating learning with performance and with productivity?
I think, most of us from the training fraternity have really not worked in the front line. So I think it's very important for everybody in the training fraternity to first go and spend a lot of time there to understand what really store operations is all about. So I think that's very important. Once we do that, we'll be able to come out with programs that are very, very business focused. Now, how do you ensure that whatever you train people on is linked to performance and productivity? Like I said, first understand the business, understand what happens in the front end. Talk, if you can't do that, then talk to the business. I think it's very important to understand from the business what they need. We as a training fraternity, we decide on behalf of the business that this is what is required. Many times we do that. I'm not saying everyone, but we normally do that. We assume a lot of things, but it's important to have these discussions. So while we do a very formal TNI, the best TNI is to do an informal one where you sit with the business, discuss with them what is the focus for the next 1 year or 1 quarter, and then build your training strategies around that. I think that becomes very important. So some of the things that I have done in my past and doing now, because in Metro it's just been about a year and a little more than that for me. But whatever I've done in my retail career has always been focused on ensuring that we understand from the business what they require, we deliver on that, and we have a metrics to measure it. So I'll give you some examples. We all know that NPS is something that every organization has, right? Net Promoter Score, in which people is one of the parameters, the staff, right? So whenever customers are giving a feedback, there's an entire feedback on how the staff is performing on the floor. What is the customer service that they're giving? So it becomes very important for training to take that piece of information and build learning interventions around that and show an improvement in the Net Promoter Score, right? I'm just giving you a very simple example that one can follow, which we have done very successfully when I was in my earlier organization. We are planning to do the same here as well. We are yet into the process of building a Net Promoter Score here. So I think that's something that we should be doing. The second thing we had done was, there was this entire concept of why is the staff not attending customers? Something which, one of the people in the audience also mentioned about customer centricity. And we built our entire activity around ensuring that every employee greets the customer. We had a very different concept that we followed in our earlier organization. So we built the entire training for that year around how does an employee greet the customer, direct the customer, and help the customer find what they want. And it worked wonderfully well. We had an evaluation metrics. We had a mystery shopping that was under the HR purview. So we ensured that our mystery shopping score, which started off at about 50% on, again, the people parameters, went up to almost 75, 80%. So that's the kind of activity we had done. So I think what becomes very important for all of us in the training fraternity is not to just focus on what we think is right, but look at what the business wants and be able to deliver that. So one thing that we're doing in our current organization is we're focusing a lot on handbags now. While we're doing, footwear, we're also focusing a lot on handbags. And looking at the way our potential manager program that I spoke about earlier went, we were able to, like I said, be very successful and get about 37 store managers on bench right now. Our business head of bags said, okay, let's work with the training team and do something around it. So we built an entire program on handbags, and we are right now delivering that across the regions. And of course, we are mapping it to the increase in the handbags business. So that's how I think it becomes very important for us to work with the business if we want to show performance and productivity. And also important to link learning with KPIs of the manager and of the employee. I think that is extremely important. The moment we leave it, hanging as something that, okay, you can do it if you want to, nothing works. The moment you link it to, let's say, incentives, you link it to to your KPIs in your goal sheet, automatically people will start focusing on, ensuring that they participate in the training and they show some kind of a result in that. Yeah. I hope that helps.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just extending that point to the audience, I'd like to hear from the audience, some of the things that you do in your organization to map efficacy of training for frontline workers. How do you measure effectiveness and efficacy of training programs that you run? And we will go on the left, this side, and I can see a gentleman with his hands up, so. I don't think the mic is working.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Myself, Mohan Upadhyay. I'm working with Page Industries. So, I was listening to one of the speaker regarding the customization of, the learnings to the different stakeholders. So I'll give my example, what I've done in my organization. So we, say for example, our frontliners, we all know that they are not very much educated. They are 10th pass or 12th pass. And for them to understand everything in English is a very difficult thing. And understanding and implementing on the ground is also very, very, difficult for them. So what we did, so we have entire module, whatever the module that we are running. So what we have done that we have entire module we have converted into the local language for the frontliners, and they started enjoying that. So it was we identified that because if we are running our own agendas as per our own requirement, then definitely it will not work.
My question really was, how do you measure training efficacy?
So measuring training efficacy, as ma'am has rightly said, we also do the mystery shoppings. In the mystery shopping, we also consider the Net Promoter Score, and also we do pre and post assessment of business. So say for example, if we are training, if we are launching a new product in the market, so we take a base numbers that before the training program, the sale is this much, and after training program, what is the improvement in that? And that's the basis, on the basis of that, we, can justify that whether the training is been, working or not.
Thank you. Anybody else from either side? Okay, we'll come to you as well. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. I look at the support functions for Reliance Retail, and for my vertical, there was a challenge of attrition. So we did a behavioral event intervention workshop, and we took the numbers first. So what is my attrition current? And then once the workshop was done, we checked what is the attrition now, and it had drastically come down. And that's how we take the data first, do the workshop, look at the challenges, and clearly the business impact was seen when the attrition had come down. So I am the lead capability for finance. So that's how we are tracking the efficacy of the programs that we do. So data is to be seen first whenever we design a program and address it. So we have moved from L2 to L4 now. So we have done L2, L3, L4. Even we have taken managers' feedbacks when we did this workshop. So this has actually worked well in my case. Thank you.
I'd like the lady here. Thank you, Meenakshi.
Yes. Hi. So I represent Talapakati Hotels. So we are the world's largest biryani brand. And yeah, our workforce is, yes, very tasty. Yeah, so, yes, yeah. I wish I could get a fall, but yeah, I'll quickly say this. So the workforce person, they are second pass, second fail, fourth pass fail. The attrition is high, super high. And the main thing for us is to impact behavior of the day. We could not go to long strategies, and we built the SOPs. We did modules to teach them. Then I realized that the best way to assess the efficiency of this learning or the learning impact was through remote audits, through cameras in the store. We didn't have as many budgets to do mystery audits and all. So we defined the customer touch points from the greet to the thank you. Was the biryani served on time? Was the table cleared on time? Was the guest escorted? So we made scorecards on that based on the remote camera audits. And then we decided which was the parameter that the real TNI based on the real impact of the, what did the waiter or the captain do? So that's how we measured it. And we gave them goals. We started with 10%, but towards the end of the program of 1.5 years, we reached 70. And everybody said, what is your moment of truth score? So I think, yeah. So that's how we did it in our ways. And it was quite impactful, yeah.
Thank you for that. So coming back, and next question is to Nirav. Nirav, I just want to understand from you, and then also from Gauri, what factors really you think that drive, or affect successful adoption and adaptation of digital learning technologies for frontline workers?
Okay, I'm just going to flip this a bit, and I say that I think that's not a challenge anymore, right? The fact that everybody has a smartphone, the accessibility and the penetration of digital devices has gone down to almost villages. I remember I was on a trek and I was in a very small village. I would call it a hamlet of about 20 houses. And my trek leader was more updated on Instagram than me. So I don't think we have that problem anymore. What's important is what's on the device and how is that connected back to what this individual will gain from doing that, and how is this connected to the overall organization goal. Jiva mentioned about the fact that today nobody is going to deliver something unless it's really aligned to a larger purpose in the organization. So that value chain needs to be tightly defined. Organizations that really define that value chain through and through in a very tightly knit manner will invariably see their learning and development strategy pan out the way they intended it and have the desired impact. If we become a little gimmicky about it, we will invariably see it fall short and we'll actually spend bad money in trying to evaluate whether it became impactful in the first place, right? So, there are various tools to, assess the impact of learning initiatives. But if you really go back to the basics of designing it and that alignment that you have done, if these two factors are taken care of, I think a lot of it will solve for itself, right? So I'm again going back to my principle of the 3 concentric circles. The tool is the least of the problem. If you really start at the core of it, get the context right, get the 2 alignment very tight with the individual and show the person that yes, doing this will yield you this. Then I think whatever you give them the paper pen, you give them a smartphone, give them a handle device, give them a video, it doesn't matter because that's just a tool through which you're communicating it to the individual. Yeah.
Right. Now, what do you feel, Gauri, about this?
So I agree with Nirav. I mean, adapting technology is not so much of a concern because most people now understand, I mean, this generation life runs on apps, their daily life runs on apps. So for me, that was not so much as if I have to look at high adoption, then the engagement also needs to be high. You need to keep feeding this generation with some exciting content, very state-of-the-art, bespoke content, which will keep them coming back to looking at and find the content engaging and coming back to your learning channel. So I would kind of ride on the value proposition that we have for educating our e-com customers, which says we talk about content, curation, convenience, and in our case, from an employee standpoint, I would say also recognition. So clearly, content needs to be, for this generation, the kind of attention span that they have needs to be fun, interactive, exciting, bite-sized, micro-learning. Also, I mean, backed with some assessment programs. From a curation standpoint, they have to be kind of feeded with what's happening around the world, say, latest trends. And then again, when I'm talking about beauty, then what's happening internationally? What are influencers and big players in the market saying today? So trends. Also, very specific role-based training. So curated to, for example, I'm interested in being a merchandiser, something specifically, for, in that sense, like we said, a little bit more personalized. Multilingual. So we are, in that sense, a fairly new organization. So as we penetrate deeper, we want to look at probably multilingual sessions. From a convenience standpoint, it has to be at the pace and the speed that they want to learn. I mean, of course, available on web, mobile, etc. At the same time, like we said about democratization. So there are, we keep all our content open for all our users, and depending on their areas of interest, they can actually self-assign a lot of modules to themselves. And we've seen a good percentage of people actually, young members in our team actually reading content which is probably not for their present role, but it's always good when they for preparing themselves for their developmental or future role. And thirdly, fourthly, I think is also about recognition. So calling out these performers, announcement from senior leaders, talking about, how on adoption matrix, etc. So recognition, I think, is the fourth piece, which I think will kind of help improve adoption.
So, Neerav, just to follow up, thought on what you said. We know that everybody has smartphones, and we also spoke about it, you spoke about it, and yet investment in digital technology, especially for frontline workers, is less than 15%. Why do you think, we're not making investment in technology, learning technology specifically for frontline workers, or why the investment is so less? Why do you think we're not looking at digitization for even learning and skilling for our frontline workers to that extent?
People don't learn on devices.
Sorry?
People don't learn on devices. People learn through experiences, right? Which is why the propensity of anybody to learn from a device is going to continue to be stagnant to that point. Because if everybody learned on devices, our children wouldn't have got academic loss for the 2 years that they were operating from home, right? Because humans are not designed to learn from visuals alone. We are designed to learn from experiences. And as a result, again, the tool can be an enabler of information, reinforcement, reference point, checklist, all that you want to push through. So it's again a push strategy. But learning never is a push. Learning is always a pull, right? And as learning leaders, we need to really find a common path where you go a distance and the learner comes a distance, because you can't force people to learn. You have to bring them and draw them to what they need to learn as well. And which is where that conversation becomes important. How do you contextualize it and then really bring that tool to just say that, hey, this is the interface through which you can really get to this point and learn from there. But again, it's a lot of experiences. So store manager that Nandi and Jiva mentioned, I think is going to become pivotal. And they need to become learning managers as well and not just store managers.
Right. Okay, I think we have like last 10 minutes left. So I just want one common question I want to pose to all of you, and probably very briefly we can address that. that for making frontline learning strategy data-driven, what do you suggest? What can L&D teams really do? What kind of challenges do you think we face when we're talking about data and connecting L&D strategy with data for frontline workers, really?
Like I mentioned earlier, connecting the two in terms of data and learning strategy, that happens only when you're connected with the business. And if you're able, like I said, if you're able to deliver what the business wants and show the result, some of the examples I've already given, I think it helps. You were also talking about digital, why we don't use so much of, so our entire platform that we use at Metro Brands is digital. Our entire potential manager program that we do is a digital intervention. We use something called Frontline by Microgenesis, and so all our modules sit on that platform, and this is specifically for managers. So they go through these modules, and then we evaluate them. That is also online. Because, again, with COVID, we had this whole concern about how do we reach out or get them over to us. So hence we had digitalized the entire program. So the evaluation also happens from the corporate office of these managers through this platform, and the entire data comes out as a report. So talking about the challenge, I don't see it a challenge for a certain level and above. When it comes to the front line, like what Nirav mentioned, I think it becomes very important, Nirav, and you mentioned, it becomes very important to keep engaging content. It's not about the digital tool you're using. It's about the content that we have. Keep it more engaging, keep it more fun, more gamified, more leaderboards and dashboards that throw up who are the toppers in the learning journeys. I think that becomes very important. So it's not a challenge to, I think, adapt a technology, but the challenge is about the content and how we drive it. And then how do you, of course, create a reward system around it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. So one, I'm taking cue from what you said.
One challenge.
Yeah, sorry.
One challenge.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm also conscious of time. So one is this, I think she was talking about how to make the people consume content. So today the content is everywhere, and if you want to really make it pull, the span of attention is very low. So Instagram attracts more things. So we are taking inspiration from Instagram. We are creating a lot of micro reels. I think that's a way. If the content is not more than a minute, I think people would really consume. It'll make a difference. You can learn everything based on that. The second one is talent decisions. Whatever talent intelligence, whatever talent decisions you are taking, be it a multi-skilled or promotion, anything, it's all about data. So the data, we are setting up, we have set up a learning operation center, which actually gives us more data to take right decisions. So the skills taxonomy, skill inventory, I think that's the way. We'll be able to make a lot of decisions so that we make sure that the employees are well equipped, and at the same time, it's also serving the business purpose.
Thank you, Jiva.
I think one very, very important piece over here is going to be the connection, or the strong connection between the organization strategy with the learning strategy. If you're able to get that aligned, I think the impact of it will show over a period of time, and then everything else can follow from there.
Right. Gauri? You have the last word.
Okay. So quickly, I think also something very simple as sometimes people fear data. So it has to be as a culture that we talk of data, and if I can use the word comfort, it's not to corner employees, but to give them the comfort to look at facts and factual information in order to improve performance and in order to fill gaps. A lot of time you see pushback on data because you're afraid of data. So I think as a culture, we need to also bring that in by interpreting the data correctly and giving the right insights to take interventions. Maybe that's how I feel.
Thanks, Nandini. We have 5 minutes left, so I'll leave the floor open for questions for our panelists. Anybody? Sorry. Yeah. Questions? The lady there.
Hi. It was wonderful listening to everyone, and I really learned few new words from the panelists today. But this question I wanted to post as an HR business partner and not as an L&D. So if we talk about training, for the frontliners at least, and the industry which we work for uses all our 5 senses somewhere or the other. But when it comes to training, it's more of digitalization, We tell people to come online and, give the product training or have the refreshers of the training. But what happens is, how do we ensure, that the correct takeaway is given to the frontliners, keeping in mind that frontliners have really a lot to face in the market. So if we talk about business, we only tell them, आप training करो, learning करो, कुछ भी करो, boss मुझे number चाहिए. So that is how we talk to our employees. So how do we ensure that we have the correct takeaway for the targeted frontliners is one, and second, because it has become so much digitalized, how do we ensure that the digitalization is not used as a gimmick and is used in a proper way, so that the right training reaches the right content, the right training reaches the frontliners, keeping in mind that how frontliners work from 9 to 6 and they are customer-facing employees for us.
And who do you want to ask this question?
Anyone is okay.
So, Nirav, you want that?
All right. It looks like down my alley, so I'll respond to that. Okay, I don't know what role you're playing in your organization, but I would just invite you to start looking at people and culture as a holistic function and not a siloed function, because I think that's where we do this service to our organization and ourselves. Learning is not an alien subject. I think we need to see that as an extension of our role as an HR business partner. I've been one, so I identify with that. And again, going back to that, let me ask you a question. Do you know cycling? Can you give her a mic quickly? Do you know cycling?
Yes, I do.
Great. How did you learn that?
When I was a kid, I learned that.
How? Not when.
My father taught me.
How? Again, how?
Practice.
All right. Did you fall?
Yes.
Did you have a PowerPoint presentation that your father showed you?
No.
Great. So that answers the question, right? People don't learn through only getting a PowerPoint presentation or a digital tool in hand or anything. You have to experience failure. Learning is a tough skill to build. Tough, right? Because you fall. Apart from the scrapes on your knees and elbows and other body, but the point is that the dejection that you experience of having not succeeded at that attempt, but the resolve to get back on the cycle is critical. And that's exactly the resolve that we need to train our workforce at, that it's okay. If you fail at this tenet, it's okay. Get up, give another shot till you get it right. So learning science has not changed, and I'm going back to that, and will not change. How much of empathy are we demonstrating with our people when they fail is going to be critical. And you and I are not going to stand on the floor. It's the store manager and the people in the store who are looking at each other. Do they create that enabling environment in their store, or they're going to continue looking down upon that person is critical, because every time somebody looks down upon you, you lose the motivation to do that again, right? You feel less good about yourself. So I think there's a lot to solve for, apart just from the digital interface that you talk about. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Nirav. The lady there.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ruchita, and I'm a part of Reliance Retail L&D team. So the question that I have to ask you is, with respect to the learning strategies for frontline workforce, I've heard all the methods and ways and the conventional methods that you've shared, right from online learning, e-learning, VILTs, OJTs. What I am interested to know as an L&D professional is if there are any unconventional learning strategies that have been deployed for our frontline workforce. Maybe something that's very novel, never heard before, never seen before, which any of your organizations are using. So I'd be more interested in knowing that.
Nandini, would you like to take, I mean, Reliance, you can answer the
yeah,
in person to her.
Yeah, that's okay, but still, that's a very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
This looks like a setup question, by the way.
Yeah, Jiva wants to answer it no matter what.
Jiva sir, I'm going to ask this question and please answer that.
So Ruchita, one thing is, what my understanding, we have to make it simple. We need to come out of these frameworks. So we are sometimes become slaves of 70, 20, 10. I mean, this is like 20 years back. So it is no more relevant. I mean, we need to really, there is no framework, 70, 20, 10, or this learning, that learning, blended learning. It's all, all these frameworks. We should come out of the framework and what is relevant. Today, a cooking video is getting some 10 million views. And everyone wants to learn. And whatever, if I want to learn something, I can learn from anything, making sambar to anything I can learn, right? So it's all about creating that curiosity. And again, one of my other audience also talking about, I'm a HRBP learning. So that's all boundaries. We are making boundaries. I don't think HR is separate and learning is separate. I've been a HR leader for 28 years. Last 2 years, I'm in a different role. And it's all about integrated, right? So we need to really make sure that what is good for the people and how we can really help them become successful to the organization. So come out of this calendarized program, 70, 20, 10. We are getting into some more very monotonous, mechanized things. So then it will be a tick mark. Everything will be a tick mark. It will not really make a sense. So an informal conversation, if you are arranging a conversation with people, a team of people, they'll learn a lot. And I'm sure I'm talking about stores. Stores, the lunchtime is a big learning avenue and then the arena. So they learn a lot in a lunchroom. So they discuss and learn from each other. They don't attend, more than attending a classroom and then tick mark. I think we need to encourage a lot of such informal conversations. I think you can learn a lot.
Yeah, I want Nandini to kind of, one conventional way.
Yeah,
Nandini.
so we used a lot of theatre methodology in delivering trainings on values, on certain soft skills. So I think that's something which one could look at in terms of unconventional learning. The second thing that we also did was to pair up, a senior person with someone at a junior level so they could have conversations like you were saying in informal, but we've done it in a formal way where they could have conversations and get some learning from a senior experienced person. So these are two quick ones because we're running short of time, but unconventional ways of training. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nandini. Any more questions? Yeah, we've just 2 minutes left.
Before I ask my question, I want to put a disclaimer that this is not a setup question because I'm also from the Reliance Retail.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So my name is Lavina, and my question is more to do with the current scenario where the retail business and the environment is changing very rapidly. So the need is also changing very rapidly. And at the same time, we as individuals are becoming very impatient. We want to learn very quickly. So we do have learning tools like bite-sized learning, micro-learning, etc. But is there any strategy or system that is in place where we can capture these needs to match the pace of the learning requirement? I hope I've not confused with the question.
I think your prelude was too long. So the question is, are there any ways to capture the needs of?
In the current scenario where the learner is impatient and the business environment is very dynamic. It changes very rapidly.
Nirav, Nandini, anybody?
I don't know. Maybe Nandini, I'm just going to go at it. Okay, for the VUCA, you heard Jiva mention that, right? So I think we've gone past that. It is dynamic and it's only going to get more and more dynamic. And if organizations have not figured this out, I think they've missed the bus by a long distance. So I'm expecting that most of the people in this organization would have, in this room, would have seen this already happen, that they're able to collate the information and the data points right from the grassroots level and bring it up in a funneled manner to a point where they're able to really put it in logical buckets and arrive at some sort of strategy emerging from that. So I think a lot of that is already in place. I wouldn't want to give you tools, but I think is a system that kind of takes care of it over a period of time. You call it, store manager feedback, you call it training need analysis, you call it survey method. I think there are various tools available, but I think it's already prevailing, and I think maybe some of the colleagues that you may have in the industry, I'm sure will throw light on how are they doing it rather than what they are doing it. I think that might just be a great way to look at it. But yes, it's a bottom-up approach, and if we do it right, then you also have the buy-in of the individual who's actually going to get impacted by that.
Thank you, Neera. I'm going to kind of stop here as we've already, we've already shot time. Thank you, panelists, for a very insightful discussion. It's always challenging to engage with frontline workers, and as we go along in our journey, L&D teams will continue to learn and relearn and unlearn ways of engaging and reskilling and upskilling our frontline workers. And forums like these really help us interact and learn from each other. So thank you very much for being with me today. And thank you for your patience and encouragement. Thank you.